They told me I was dead at the post office. Not in those words exactly. The clerk, a young woman with coral lipstick and a name tag that read Melissa, scanned my driver's license twice, frowned at her computer screen, then called over her supervisor. The supervisor, an older man with reading glasses on a beaded chain, looked at the screen, looked at me, and said in a voice that was probably meant to be kind, "Ma'am, I'm afraid there's been some kind of error in the system. It shows you as deceased." I stood there holding the package I'd come to mail, a birthday gift for my grandson Thomas, late as usual because I'd been putting it off, telling myself I'd get to the store tomorrow, then the next day, then the next. The fluorescent lights hummed above us. Someone behind me in line sighed. "That can't be right," I said. Melissa typed something, clicked her mouse, typed again. "It says here your social security number is flagged, date of death listed as March 19th. March 19th. That was 2 weeks ago. I had been alive on March 19th. I remembered it specifically because it had rained that morning and I'd spent an hour wiping down the baseboards in the hallway, something I'd been meaning to do for months. The kind of task that feels like proof of existence when you complete it. My daughter Rachel had called that afternoon to ask if I could watch Thomas for the weekend. Her tone the way it always was, not quite asking, more like informing me of a decision already made. I'd said yes. I always said yes. "I'm not dead," I said to Melissa. Then, because it sounded absurd even to my own ears, obviously. The supervisor removed his glasses and let them dangle against his chest. "You'll need to contact Social Security, ma'am. We can't process anything until this is resolved." I left the package on the counter, walked out into the parking lot where the afternoon sun felt too bright, too insistent. Got into my car, a 12-year-old Honda Civic that Robert had helped me pick out before he died. Back when someone still asked what I wanted and sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, not moving, not thinking, just breathing in the stale smell of the air freshener I'd hung from the rearview mirror 6 months ago that no longer smelled like anything. The mail came while I was making tea that evening. Earl Grey, the kind Robert used to drink. I'd kept buying it after he died 8 years ago. Even though I'd never particularly liked it, some stubborn insistence that his preferences deserved to continue existing in the world. The ritual of it, kettle on the stove, the specific ceramic mug he'd used, 2 minutes to steep, no sugar. I performed these actions the way other people said prayers. Among the catalogues and credit card offers was a letter from Social Security, official, cream-coloured envelope with a government seal. I opened it standing at the counter, tea steaming beside me untouched. "Dear Representative of the Estate of Eleanor Patricia Morrison," it began. The words rearranged themselves in my vision. Representative, Estate of. "We regret to inform you that monthly benefits have been terminated as of the date of death recorded in our system, March 19, 2025. Final payment was disbursed on April 1, 2025, If you believe this information is in error, please contact our office immediately with supporting documentation. I read it 3 times. Then I picked up the phone and called Rachel. She answered on the 4th ring. I could hear Thomas in the background, some video game with explosions and dramatic music. "Mom, hey, can I call you back? We're in the middle of the Social Security office says I'm dead." Pause. The video game sounds continued. "What? I got a letter. It says my benefits are terminated because I died on March 19th. Another pause, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice had that particular quality it got when she was annoyed at being interrupted. "That's obviously a mistake, Mom. You probably just need to call them and straighten it out." The post office had the same information in their system. "Well, it's a computer error. It happens. Look, I really need to, Rachel." I said it quietly, firmly. "Did you do something?" "Did I? What? Mum, what are you talking about?" But I heard it, the slight shift in her voice. Not quite defensiveness, but something adjacent to it. The tone she'd used when she was 16 and I'd asked about the dent in the car. The charge on my credit card, she said, was for school supplies. "I'm asking if you did something with my accounts, with my information." "Jesus, Mum, no, I didn't do anything. I can't believe you'd even... You know what? I don't have time for this right now. Call Social Security tomorrow and fix it." She hung up. I stood there in my kitchen, the kitchen I'd scrubbed yesterday, wiping down every surface with the methodical attention I applied to most things these days, as if cleanliness could substitute for purpose, and felt something cold and certain settle in my chest. I'd given Rachel power of attorney 2 years ago. She'd brought the papers to me one afternoon, said it was just a precaution, just in case something happened. Wouldn't it be better if she could handle things without having to go through the courts? I'd signed, because she was my daughter, because saying no felt like an accusation of untrustworthiness, because I was tired and she was so very certain about what needed to be done. I walked to the small desk in my bedroom where I kept my important papers in a filing cabinet Robert had bought at an estate sale 30 years ago. The accordion folder marked "Financial" was thinner than I remembered. The most recent bank statements were missing. So were the last 6 months of Social Security deposits. I found older statements from before Robert died, when my name had still been on the checking account we'd shared for 42 years. After he died, Rachel had helped me simplify things, helped me open a new account just in my name, helped me set up automatic deposits, helped me. I spread the old statements across my bed and did the math. Over the past 3 years, I'd given Rachel $43,000, some of it in checks when she said the car needed repairs, the furnace was broken, Thomas needed braces. Some of it in cash when she said she was short on rent just this once, just until her next paycheck. Small amounts that accumulated into something I hadn't been tracking, hadn't been adding up. Because what kind of mother keeps a ledger of what her own daughter asks for? The phone rang. I looked at the screen. Thomas, my grandson, 13 years old and already growing into someone whose voice I sometimes didn't recognize on the phone. I answered, "Grandma." His voice was tight, nervous. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Mum said..." "She said you called and were upset about something." I closed my eyes, pressed my palm against the bedspread, feeling the texture of the chenille under my fingers, grounding myself in something tactile and real. "Thomas, did your mother tell you anything about my social security? About any paperwork?" Silence. "Thomas, I'm not supposed to..." He stopped, started again. "Grandma, I think maybe you should talk to a lawyer or something." Then he hung up. I sat on the edge of my bed in the house I'd lived in for 34 years. The house where Rachel had learned to walk, where we'd hosted Christmas dinners and birthday parties, where Robert had died in the bedroom down the hall with hospice nurses who smelled like lavender hand soap and understood with absolute clarity that my daughter had declared me dead. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, legally, officially dead. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table with a notepad, the kind with a pale blue grid that Robert used to use for his carpentry measurements, and made a list. Bank account number, social security number, the name of the lawyer who'd helped us with our wills 10 years ago, though I wasn't sure he was still practicing. The date I'd signed the power of attorney, the dates of the checks I'd written to Rachel. Everything I could remember that felt like evidence of a life I'd been living while someone else had been erasing it. At 6 in the morning, I called Walter. Walter Chen lived 3 houses down, retired postal worker, widower for 5 years. The kind of neighbour who noticed when your newspaper piled up on the driveway. We'd developed a quiet friendship based on practical exchanges. He helped me change the air filters in my furnace. I brought him soup when he had bronchitis. We understood each other's loneliness without needing to discuss it. Eleanor. His voice was rough with sleep. "Everything okay?" "No." I surprised myself with how steady I sounded. "Walter, I need to ask you something, and I need you to not think I'm losing my mind." Pause. "Okay, can you come with me to the Social Security office this morning? I need a witness." "A witness to what?" "To the fact that I'm alive." He arrived at my door an hour later, dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt. His hair still damp from the shower. I told him everything while we drove. The post office, the letter, Rachel, the missing statements. He listened without interrupting, his hands folded in his lap, his face impassive in that way that made him easy to talk to. "Your daughter did this," he said finally. "Not a question." "Yes. What do you need from me?" "Just stand there. Let them see I'm not some confused old woman who wandered in alone." The Social Security office was in a strip mall between a Dollar General and a tax preparation service. The waiting room smelled like industrial carpet and instant coffee. 20 plastic chairs, half of them occupied by people who looked like they'd been there for hours. I took a number from the dispenser, 47. The electronic board showed they were serving number 31. We waited. Walter bought me coffee from the vending machine. It tasted like hot water someone had waved a coffee bean over, but I drank it anyway, grateful for something to do with my hands. 40 minutes later, my number appeared on the board with a desk assignment, Station 4. The woman behind Station 4 was perhaps 50, her grey roots showing through box dye brown, her expression that particular blend of exhaustion and defensive bureaucracy that comes from years of dealing with people's problems you can't solve. "How can I help you?" She didn't look up from her computer.
"My name is Eleanor Morrison. Your system says I died on March 19th.
"I'm here to correct that." Now, she looked up, glanced at Walter, back to me. "You'll need to bring documentation. Birth certificate, current ID, proof of..." "I have all of that." I laid my driver's license on the counter. My birth certificate. My passport that hadn't been used since Robert and I went to Vancouver for our 40th anniversary. She examined each document, typed something, frowned. "Ma'am, according to our records, a death certificate was submitted on March 20th by..." She squinted at the screen. "A family member with power of attorney. The claim was processed, benefits were terminated, and a final payment was issued." The family member was wrong. I'm not dead. "I understand that, Ma'am. But we can't just change the records without following proper procedures. You'll need to file a dispute, provide additional documentation, possibly get a letter from your doctor confirming you're alive, and then..." "How long does that take?" 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes longer." Walter cleared his throat. "Can she speak to a supervisor?" The woman's jaw tightened. "I am the supervisor." I looked at her nameplate. Linda Hernandez, claims supervisor. I thought about all the other Eleanor Morrisons who might have sat in this chair, faced this particular brand of institutional indifference, and given up. "Ms. Hernandez." I kept my voice level, calm. "Someone committed fraud using my identity. Someone declared me dead and stole my benefits. I need to know who submitted that death certificate." "I can't release that information. It's my death certificate. How can that not be my information?" "Privacy regulations, Ma'am?" "The person who submitted the certificate has privacy rights." I felt Walter shift beside me, felt the heat rising in my chest, but I didn't raise my voice, didn't cry, didn't do any of the things that would let her dismiss me as emotional, unreasonable, hysterical. "Then I'd like the name of your supervisor, and after that I'd like the contact information for whoever oversees this office, and I'd like everything in writing." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she handed me a business card and a form. "Fill this out. We'll start an investigation. You'll receive a response by mail in 6 to 8 weeks. We left. Walter drove. I sat in the passenger seat and felt something crystallize inside me. Not anger exactly, but something colder and more permanent. The death certificate arrived 3 days later, not from Social Security, from Rachel. It came in a large manila envelope with no return address, delivered by regular mail, as if she wanted me to know but couldn't quite bring herself to face me directly. I opened it at the kitchen table, unfolded the form that claimed to be an official record of my non-existence. Date of death, March 19, 2025. Cause, natural causes. Location, home. Informant, Rachel Morrison, daughter. Signature, Rachel Morrison. There was a second page, a notarized statement from a Dr. Michael Chen, no relation to Walter presumably, certifying that he had pronounced Eleanor Patricia Morrison deceased at 3:47 p.m. on March 19th, 2025. I didn't know any Dr. Michael Chen. I'd been alive at 3:47 p.m. on March 19th, washing baseboards. I set the papers down very carefully, smoothed them flat against the table, looked at my daughter's signature. She'd signed her name in that looping, confident script she'd developed in high school, the one she'd practiced over and over in the margins of her notebooks. I remembered that. Remembered her at 15, trying out different versions of herself, testing which signature looked most adult, most authoritative. My phone buzz. Message from Rachel. Got the bank situation sorted. No need to worry about any of it. Focus on yourself. I read it twice. Then I called the lawyer. Joseph Brennan had handled our estate planning, our wills, the transfer of the house title after Robert died. He was in his 70s now, mostly retired, but his voicemail said he still took appointments on Wednesdays and Fridays. I left a message. He called back within an hour. Eleanor Morrison. His voice had the raspy quality of someone who'd spent decades in courtrooms. Been a while. What can I do for you? I told him. All of it. The declaration of death, the benefits, the missing bank statements, the power of attorney I'd signed 2 years ago. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, there was a long pause. Eleanor, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Do you want your daughter prosecuted? The question landed like a physical weight. I want her to stop, I said. That's not what I asked. I looked out the window at my backyard, the garden I'd planted with Robert 30 years ago, now overgrown, the bird feeder I filled every Sunday out of habit. I want my life back. However that needs to happen. Okay, the sound of papers rustling. I can see you Friday at 2. Bring everything, the death certificate, the power of attorney, bank statements if you have them, anything that shows what she's done. We'll start with revoking that POA. Then we'll see what else we're dealing with. Thank you, Joseph. Eleanor, his voice softened. I've been doing this 45 years. Seen a lot of family theft, elder abuse. It's never easy, but you did the right thing by calling me. Most people don't." After we hung up, I sat for a long time with my hands folded in my lap, feeling the weight of what I'd set in motion. My daughter had declared me dead, and I had just declared war. The bank called on Thursday, automated voice. "This is a courtesy call regarding account number ending in 4472. This account has been closed. If you believe this is an error..." I hung up, called the bank directly. Spent 20 minutes on hold listening to music that sounded like it had been composed specifically to induce surrender. Finally, a human. "Prime Bank customer service, this is Derek. How can I help you?" My checking account was closed. I didn't close it. "I can look into that for you, ma'am. Can I have your account number?" I read it from the last statement I'd found, 9 months old, buried under a stack of Rachel's old report cards I'd been meaning to throw away but hadn't. Because throwing away your child's childhood feels like a betrayal, even when they've betrayed you. Typing sounds. "Okay, I'm showing that account was closed on March 25th by the joint account holder." "There is no joint account holder. It's my account." More typing. "Ma'am, according to our records, Rachel Morrison was added as a joint holder on January 14th, 2023. She closed the account and transferred the remaining funds to an account in her name." January 14th, 2023. I tried to remember that day. Couldn't. They all blurred together after Robert died, a grey succession of mornings and evenings with nothing to distinguish Tuesday from Thursday except which day the trash went out. How much was in the account? At closure, the balance was $18,462. The number sat in my chest like a stone. $18,000. My Social Security deposits, the money from selling Robert's truck, the small life insurance policy that was supposed to cover my eventual funeral. "Ma'am? Are you still there?" "Yes." "If you believe there's been fraud, you can file a dispute. But since Ms. Morrison was a joint account holder with full access rights, I didn't add her as a joint holder."
"Ma'am, we have a signed authorization form with your signature from 2023. If you believe your signature was forged, you'll need to file a police report and provide us with a case number, and then we can..."
I hung up again. Sat at my kitchen table, the same place I'd sat thousands of times. Made coffee in this kitchen, paid bills, sorted mail, done crossword puzzles on Sunday mornings while Robert read the news on his tablet, both of us existing in companionable silence. Now the silence had a different quality, heavier, the weight of absence where presence used to be. My phone buzzed. From Walter. "How you holding up?" I stared at it. Couldn't think of how to answer. Finally typed, "Okay." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "Liar, come over for lunch, made soup." Joseph's office was in a building that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1985. Wood panelling, beige carpet, the smell of old law books, and air conditioning that ran too cold. He was waiting for me in a conference room, papers spread across the table. "Eleanor." He stood, shook my hand. His grip was firm, warm. "Have a seat." I sat. He pushed a document across the table. "This is a revocation of power of attorney. It's effective immediately once you sign it. After that, Rachel won't be able to access your accounts, make medical decisions, or act on your behalf in any legal capacity." I read it carefully, every word, the way Robert had taught me to read contracts, slowly, assuming nothing, questioning everything. "What happens when I sign this?" "I file it with the court. Send copies to every institution that has the original POA on file. Banks, Social Security, hospitals. It becomes part of the public record." "And then," he leaned back in his chair, "then we figure out what else she's done and what we can recover. Can we prosecute for what she's done so far?" "Yes. Identity theft, fraud, filing a false death certificate. These are serious crimes. But," he folded his hands, "Eleanor, I need to be straight with you. If we go down that road, it won't be clean. Your daughter will be arrested. There will be a trial. It'll be in the papers, and there's a very good chance she'll go to prison. And if we don't, then we recover what we can through civil court. Sue for the return of funds. Get restraining orders if needed. It's slower, messier, but it doesn't involve criminal charges." I thought about Rachel at 7, crying when she fell off her bike. Rachel at 16, furious when I wouldn't let her go to a concert. Rachel at 25, introducing me to her husband, now ex-husband, with such hope in her eyes. Rachel at 42, signing my death certificate. "I don't know yet," I said. "Can we start with the revocation?" That's exactly where we should start. I signed the document. Joseph notarized it, promised to file it that afternoon. As I was leaving, he said, "Eleanor, I've been meaning to ask, that grandson of yours, Thomas, he involved in this?" "I don't think so. Not willingly." "Good. Keep that door open if you can. Kids get caught in these things. Doesn't mean they chose it." The Social Security office the second time was different. Not because the building had changed, same strip mall, same industrial carpet, but because I'd changed. I didn't take a number, walked straight to the counter where Linda Hernandez sat, Ms. Hernandez's. I placed the death certificate on her desk, then the revocation of power of attorney, then my driver's license. "I'm Eleanor Morrison. I filed a dispute last week. I'm here to provide additional documentation proving I'm alive." She looked at the papers, looked at me. Something shifted in her expression. "Wait here." She disappeared into a back office. Returned 10 minutes later with a man in his 60s wearing a badge that read District Manager Mrs. Morrison. He extended his hand. "I'm Robert Chen. I understand you're dealing with a complicated situation. My daughter declared me dead and stole my benefits. I'm here to undo that." He nodded slowly. We've opened an investigation into the death certificate that was filed. Our fraud unit is involved. What I can tell you is that we're expediting your case. Normally this takes 6 to 8 weeks, but given the circumstances, he glanced at Linda, who looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. We're going to push it through in 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Best I can do. In the meantime, I'm authorising a hardship payment to cover your April benefits. It'll be a paper cheque mailed to this address. He showed me my address on the screen, my actual address, not wherever Rachel had tried to redirect things to. Thank you. Mrs. Morrison? He leaned forward slightly. I've worked here 23 years, seen a lot of fraud, but someone filing a fake death certificate for their own parent? He shook his head. I'm sorry you're dealing with this. The letter from the utility company arrived the next day. Dear Ms. Rachel Morrison, this confirms the transfer of electric and gas services for 20847 Maple Drive to your name, effective April 1, 2025. Previous account holder, Eleanor Morrison. I called them. Went through the same exhausting routine, the automated system, the hold music, the explanation. Ma'am, the transfer was authorised by Rachel Morrison using a valid power of attorney. To reverse it, you'll need to provide documentation showing the POA has been revoked. I have that documentation. Then you can bring it to our office or mail it to. I wrote down the address, hung up, added it to the growing list of places I needed to visit, forms I needed to file, proof I needed to provide that I existed. Called the gas company, the water company, the internet provider. Each conversation the same. Rachel had systematically transferred everything out of my name. Each reversal would require documentation, time, energy. By the time I finished the last call, it was dark outside. I realised I hadn't eaten since Walter's soup at lunch. Made toast. Couldn't eat it. Gave it to the birds instead, crumbling it on the back deck, where the cardinal that Robert used to watch came every evening at dusk. Inside, my phone rang. Thomas. I answered. Grandma? His voice was small, young. Mum said I'm not supposed to call you. Why not? She said you're sick, confused. Said you're saying crazy things and we need to give you space. I closed my eyes, pressed my hand against the counter. Thomas, I'm not confused. Your mother did something that hurt me very badly and I'm trying to fix it. That's all. Silence. Grandma, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what she was doing. She said she was just helping you manage your money because you were forgetting things. She showed me papers. It looked real. What papers? Doctor's notes about memory problems, dementia. She said you'd signed the power of attorney because you wanted her to take over before things got worse. The lie was so complete, so carefully constructed. Doctor's notes I'd never seen, diagnoses I'd never received. Thomas, I don't have dementia. I don't have memory problems. Those papers weren't real. I know. His voice broke. I figured it out when she told me not to call you. That's when I knew. It's okay. It's not okay. She lied to me. She used me. He stopped. I heard him crying. My grandson, 13 years old, learning that the adults in his life were capable of worse things than he'd imagined. Thomas, listen to me. You're not responsible for what your mother did. You hear me? None of this is your fault. I should have known. I should have checked. You're a kid. You trusted your mother. That's what kids are supposed to do. We sat in silence on opposite ends of the phone line. Two people trying to figure out what comes after betrayal. Grandma, can I still come visit you? Yes, any time, always. After we hung up, I sat in the dark and let myself feel it, the full weight of what Rachel had done. Not just the money, not just the fraud. She'd tried to erase me while using me, had crafted a story in which I was both gone and still functional enough to be convenient. She'd turned me into a ghost I could haunt my own life. But ghosts don't call lawyers, don't file revocations, don't sit at kitchen tables making lists of every institution that needs to be notified that rumours of my death were greatly exaggerated. I turned on the light, made more tea, sat down with my notepad and wrote. Rachel's house was in a development built 15 years ago when she'd still been married. 2-story colonial, beige siding, landscaping maintained by a service. I'd helped with the down payment, $30,000 from the money Robert left me. I parked in the driveway, didn't call first, walked to the door and knocked. She opened it in yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, holding her phone. Saw me, her face went carefully blank. "Mum, may I come in?" She didn't move. "Is this about the Social Security thing? Because I told you it's just a computer error. They'll fix it." "It's not a computer error. You filed a false death certificate. You closed my bank account. You transferred my utilities." Her jaw tightened. "I don't know what you think. I have the death certificate you filed. I have your signature. I have the bank records showing you closed my account and took $18,000. I have the utility transfers. I have everything, Rachel." She stepped back. For a moment, I thought she might close the door. Then she moved aside. The house was clean, quiet. No sign of Thomas. Good. This needed to happen without him present. We stood in her living room. She didn't offer me a seat. "You had no right," she said, "going to a lawyer, making accusations. You declared me dead. I was trying to protect our future. Do you have any idea how much Thomas's college is going to cost? How much I've struggled since the divorce? You were just sitting on all that money, doing nothing with it. It was my money. It was going to be mine anyway. You're 72, Mom. I'm just accelerating the inevitable." The words landed like acid. Accelerating the inevitable. as if my death was merely a scheduling inconvenience she'd taken the initiative to resolve. I looked at her. This woman I'd carried for 9 months, raised for 18 years, supported for 20 more, tried to find something recognizable in her face. I revoked the power of attorney, I said quietly. I'm pursuing charges for fraud. The Social Security Office has opened a fraud investigation, and I've changed my will. She went very still. What? You're not in it anymore? Nothing goes to you, not the house, not the savings, not anything. You can't do that. I'm your daughter. Yes, you are. I held her gaze. And you tried to erase me, so I'm erasing you. That's fair, isn't it? This is insane. You're punishing me for trying to help. Help. The word felt sharp in my mouth. Rachel, you can call it whatever you need to call it, but we both know what you did. I turned to leave. She grabbed my arm. Mum, please, we can fix this. We can, if you don't press charges, if you just let me pay it back gradually, we can pretend none of this happened. I looked at her hand on my arm. She let go. I'll think about it, I said, which wasn't a promise, just an acknowledgement that I hadn't yet decided how much I was willing to destroy in the process of saving myself. Thomas answered the door of his friend's house where he'd been staying. His eyes were red. He'd been crying. Grandma, can we talk? We sat on the front porch. He pulled his knees up to his chest, making himself smaller. Mum says you're going to put her in jail. I haven't decided yet, but yes, that's an option. She's my mom, I know, but what she did to you... He stopped, started again. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, how I'm supposed to feel. You don't have to choose, Thomas. This is between your mother and me. You can love her and be angry at what she did. Both things can be true. He wiped his eyes. She cries all the time now. Says you ruined everything. Says she was just trying to take care of me, make sure we'd be okay. With my money, by declaring me dead. I know it's wrong, but she's still my mom. We sat in silence. A dog barked somewhere down the street. I have something for you, he said finally. Went inside, came back with a small object wrapped in tissue paper. I unwrapped it. Robert's compass, the one he'd used for hiking, had shown Thomas how to read when he was 8. I'd kept it on my dresser after Robert died, hadn't noticed it was missing. Mom took it, Thomas said. She took a lot of your stuff when she was clearing out accounts, said she'd sell it. I grabbed this before she could. I'm sorry. I should have grabbed more. I didn't know what she was really doing. I held the compass. The brass was warm from being in his pocket. North still pointed north. Thank you, Thomas. Are you going to be okay, Grandma? Yes, I think I am. The bank manager, his name was David, 40-something, tie slightly crooked, listened to my story with increasing concern. Mrs. Morrison, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. Let me see what I can do. He set me up, with a new account. Made sure Rachel's name wasn't anywhere near it, added extra security flags, gave me his direct line. "Now," he said, "you mentioned wanting to set up a trust." "Yes, I want to make sure that if something happens to me, my assets go somewhere they can do good, not to my daughter." "Do you have a beneficiary in mind?" I thought about it, thought about Thomas, but he was a minor and still under Rachel's care. Thought about charities, organisations, causes, the homeless shelter on Elm Street, and a college fund for my grandson, Thomas Morrison, accessible only when he turns 21, administered by my lawyer Joseph Brennans. David nodded, made notes. "We can absolutely set that up. It'll take about a week to process the paperwork." As I was leaving, he said, "Mrs. Morrison, I've worked in banking 15 years. I've seen a lot of family theft, elder abuse. But someone your age fighting back this hard," he smiled. "That's not something I see every day. Good for you." In the parking lot, I sat in my car and looked at Robert's compass, turned it in my hands, watching the needle settle. I was 72 years old. My daughter had declared me dead. I'd spent 2 weeks systematically proving I was alive, reclaiming every piece of my existence that she'd tried to take. And I wasn't done yet. The reporter called on a Wednesday. "Mrs. Morrison? This is Sarah Kim from the Tribune. I'm working on a story about elder fraud, and your case came across my desk. Would you be willing to talk to me?" I'd been watering the tomato plants on my back deck. Stopped, looked at the phone. "How did you find out about my case?" "Court filings are public record. Your daughter's name flagged in a fraud investigation connected to Social Security. I did some digging." Public record. I hadn't considered that. Hadn't thought about anyone outside this small circle knowing what Rachel had done. "What exactly would you want to know?" "Everything. What happened, how you found out, what you're doing about it." "Mrs. Morrison, cases like yours happen more often than people realise. Adult children stealing from elderly parents, using powers of attorney, filing false death certificates. If you're willing to tell your story, it might help other people recognise the warning signs." I thought about Linda Hernandez at the Social Security office, that initial wall of bureaucratic indifference. Thought about how many other Eleanor Morrisons might have given up. "Okay," I said, "I'll talk to you." The article ran on Sunday, front page of the local section. "Declared dead. Local woman fights daughter's alleged fraud." There was a photo, me standing in front of my house. I looked older than I imagined myself. Grey hair, lines around my eyes, but my spine straight, my gaze level. Sarah had written it carefully, laying out the facts without sensationalism. The death certificate, the stolen benefits, the closed accounts, the systematic erasure. She'd interviewed Joseph, who confirmed the legal proceedings. She'd tried to reach Rachel, who had no comment. The story included a sidebar, warning signs of elder financial abuse. My phone started ringing at 7 a.m. Neighbours I hadn't spoken to in years. people from church, Robert's old colleagues, all of them shocked, sympathetic, angry on my behalf. Walter came over with the paper. "You did good, Eleanor. This needed to be said." Rachel called at noon. I let it go to voicemail. "How could you? How could you talk to a reporter? You've humiliated me. Everyone I know has seen this. Thomas saw it. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I deleted the message. The district attorney's office called that afternoon. "Mrs. Morrison, this is Assistant DA Patricia Wells. I'm calling about your case. We've reviewed the evidence you provided and we're moving forward with criminal charges against Rachel Morrison's." My hands went still on the counter. "What charges?" "Identity theft, fraud, filing false documents, theft by deception. We're still investigating, but what we have so far is substantial. She'll be arraigned next week. I wanted to give you a heads up before you hear it somewhere else." "What happens at an arraignment?" "She'll be formally charged. She'll enter a plea. The judge will set bail if applicable. After that, we move toward trial unless she takes a plea deal." A plea deal. It's common in cases like these. She could plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for a reduced sentence and restitution. But Mrs. Morrison, I have to tell you, even with a plea deal, she's likely looking at prison time. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen and tried to imagine visiting my daughter in prison. Tried to imagine explaining to Thomas why his mother wasn't at his high school graduation, his college move-in, his wedding someday. Tried to imagine living with that. I wrote the letter that night. Not to send, just to say the things that needed to be said to someone, even if that someone was only paper. "Dear Rachel, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if I'll ever send it, but I need to write it anyway, if only to make sense of what happened between us. You were 3 when you first told me you loved me. We were at the park. You'd been on the swings, and you ran to me with your arms out, and you said it so simply. 'I love you, Mommy.' Like it was the easiest, most natural thing in the world. I've thought about that moment a lot these past weeks, trying to find the thread that connects that little girl to the woman who signed my death certificate, trying to understand when love became something else, when I became something else to you, not a person, but a resource to be managed, then depleted, then eliminated. You said you were accelerating the inevitable. That hurt more than the fraud itself, because it meant you'd already written me off. I was dead to you before you made it official. I want you to know I could have prevented all of this, could have stayed invisible, could have let you take everything and said nothing, done nothing, vanished quietly the way you expected me to. But I didn't. Not because I hate you, not even because I want to punish you, though I won't lie and say there isn't anger. I'm doing this because I'm 72 years old and I'm not done existing. Because I deserve to live my life as myself, not as a ghost in your story. I'm doing this because someone has to show you that erasing people has consequences. I hope someday you understand why I had to fight back. I hope someday you realize what you did. I hope someday you're sorry. But I'm not waiting for that day to come. I'm living my life now, without you. Because you taught me something valuable when you declared me dead. I don't need your permission to be alive, Mum. I folded the letter, put it in an envelope, wrote her name on the front. Then I put it in my desk drawer under the revoked power of attorney next to the death certificate with her signature. Maybe someday I'd send it, maybe not. The letter wasn't really for her anyway, it was for me. Proof that I could articulate what had happened without falling apart. Proof that I could look at the worst thing my daughter had done and still call myself her mother and still mean it. Evidence that love and boundaries could coexist. The arraignment was on a Thursday. I didn't go. Joseph called me afterward. She pleaded not guilty. Bail was set at $50,000. Her lawyer posted it. Trial scheduled for September. 5 months away. 5 months of waiting to see if my daughter would be convicted of trying to erase me. Thank you for calling, Joseph. Eleanor, one more thing. The DA offered a plea deal. 3 years, suspended to probation if she pays full restitution within 12 months. She turned it down. What does that mean? Means she's betting on a trial. Betting a jury will be sympathetic. Mother of a teenage son, no prior record, claims she was trying to help a parent with dementia. He paused. Eleanor, juries can be unpredictable in family cases. You need to be prepared for the possibility that she walks. I know. After we hung up, I made tea. Earl Grey sat by the window where Robert used to sit with his newspaper, watched the cardinal at the feeder, the same one that came every evening, loyal to routine in a way that felt comforting. The mail arrived. I walked to the box, sorted through the usual catalogues and bills. At the bottom, a letter from Social Security. Dear Mrs. Eleanor Patricia Morrison, this letter confirms that your status has been updated in our system as of May 15, 2025. Your death record has been removed. Monthly benefits will resume with your June payment, including reimbursement for missed payments. We apologize for any inconvenience. Inconvenience. As if being declared dead was comparable to a delayed package or a wrong phone number. But my name was there, Eleanor Patricia Morrison. Present tense, alive. I sat on my front steps with the letter in my hands and felt something unfold in my chest. Not quite joy, not quite relief, something quieter, something like recognition. I existed. Not because my daughter acknowledged me, not because I'd won or lost any particular battle. I existed because I'd insisted on it, because I'd walked into the Social Security office and the lawyer's office and the bank and said, with quiet conviction, I am here. I am alive. You will acknowledge this. The utilities were back in my name. The bank account belonged to me alone. with extra security measures that meant no one, not even with a power of attorney, could touch it without my physical presence and confirmation. The trust was established, protecting Thomas's future without giving Rachel access. The house lease had been corrected. Every system that had erased me had been forced to reinstate me. I was 72 years old and I had resurrected myself. But resurrection isn't resurrection without acknowledging what died. Rachel and I weren't speaking, might never speak again, depending on the trial. Thomas came to visit twice a week, but always when Rachel was at work. Our relationship now conducted in secret. As if loving both of us was something he needed to hide. I'd regained my legal existence, but I'd lost my daughter, not to death, to the space between us that neither of us knew how to cross. Some days that felt like a price too high. Some days I looked at the phone and wanted to call her, wanted to say, "Let's pretend none of this happened. Come back, be my daughter again. I'll be your mother." But then I'd remember accelerating the inevitable. I'd remember signing my own death certificate. And I'd know that going back wasn't an option. Going back meant disappearing, meant accepting that my existence was optional, conditional, something to be managed and eventually eliminated for convenience. I couldn't live that way. I'd already been dead once. I wasn't doing it again. If you're reading this and you recognize yourself, if you're the one who always says yes, who always gives, who's slowly being erased by the people who are supposed to love you, I want you to know something. Your silence isn't kindness. It's abandonment of yourself. Your boundaries aren't cruelty. They're proof that you matter. Your no isn't selfish. It's the first word of your resurrection. You don't need permission to exist. You don't need permission to fight back when someone tries to erase you. You don't need permission to want more than invisible exhaustion. I know how it feels to be 72 and facing down your own daughter in court. I know how it feels to choose yourself, knowing it means losing the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. I know how it feels to discover that unconditional love sometimes means loving yourself enough to walk away from people who only want you gone. It's hard, God, it's hard. But being dead is harder. The post office on a Tuesday afternoon. Same fluorescent lights, same industrial carpet, different clerk. Not Melissa, but a young man with glasses who processed my package without incident, without checking for death records, without questioning whether the name on my ID corresponded to a living person. I'd brought something to mail, a letter addressed to myself, Eleanor Patricia Morrison, 2847 Maple Drive. Inside, a copy of the Social Security reinstatement notice, the trust documents, a photo of Thomas and me at his 8th grade graduation, and a note I'd written that morning. Remember this. You fought. You won. You exist. Don't forget. The clerk weighed the envelope, scanned it, handed me a receipt. Should arrive in 3 to 5 business days, ma'am. I took the receipt, walked out into the parking lot where the afternoon sun slanted gold across the asphalt. Got in my car, the Honda that Robert had helped me choose, that I was still driving, still maintaining, still using to navigate a life that belonged entirely to me now. At home, I made tea, sat in Robert's chair, looked out at the garden we'd planted together 30 years ago, now overgrown but still recognisably ours. In 3 to 5 business days, I'd receive my own letter, proof that I could send something to myself and have it arrive, proof that the systems that had erased me now recognised my name, my address, my right to exist in their records. Small thing, profound thing. I sipped my tea and waited for my letter to arrive.